Welcome back, everyone. Michael Rosmer here with Richucation. I'm excited to have you guys here with us today. We are going to talk today about ultimate productivity, and really what you're going to get over the next series of videos is kind of the ultimate productivity resource pulled from all these different places over the years that I've seen. What I've seen with most productivity material out there is it falls into one of two categories, or both, okay? So these are kind of the deficiencies of it. It might be fantastic, all right? But it's usually something that there are these like specific tips that don't work for everybody, right? For whatever reason, and I'll give you an example. Is a bunch of them will maybe be focused on starting in the morning and being early riser and this kind of thing, right? Which I'm not. Like, I'm a night person, so that doesn't work very well for me. Does that mean that I can't be productive? No, absolutely not. It's a bunch of bullshit. Does it mean that, somebody who gets up can't be productive? No, absolutely not, right? The flip side is, so what I would define there is it's non-essential, right? So there are these tips that they work some of the time but not others, all right? Which means they're non-essential. And then the other is they are very context specific. They're designed to achieve a particular type of outcome, and even though the person might not be aware of that, there are different types of outcomes that we do, and that might not be particularly effective in your case. Okay, and so in that sense, they're not universal. So this is like the universal and essentials of productivity, all right, and really maximizing your productivity. So we're going to call this, and this is going to be over the next few videos, the ultimate productivity guide. Okay. We may have to sell this as its own separate thing. It's not that complicated, it's not that many pieces, etc. But it will hopefully give you an overview basically of everything that I have learned from all these different places, lots of different research, and not just looking at kind of the traditional productivity ideas, but actually getting into, doing what research has backed. And realizing that research has backed very different approaches for different contexts. So we're going to cover that, okay? Now, productivity really has two parts, okay? And so all of what we're going to discuss is ultimately going to be about these two parts. And why is this so important? Why is productivity so important at this stage? Well, fundamentally, we want to grow our impact. That's what we're talking about here, which means we have to be able to do more with less, all right? And even though some of the things that we're talking about are lower impact within the context of our own personal productivity, like there's a few things that make an enormous difference, and then there's a bunch of things that make a fractional difference, okay? Why do we study those fractional things still? Because of the fact that those things are relevant to our team, which then has a compounding effect, okay? So productivity is fundamentally about just two parts, all right? It's doing the right things, okay, and doing those things right. Now, generally speaking, out of those two, which is the more important? By far, interestingly, okay, which is the most important, right? So ask yourself that question. And which do you think people tend to be worse at and put the most emphasis on? And this is just really, if you think about it, kind of bizarre. Where do most people put their emphasis? They put it on doing those things right. Okay? That's where they put their productivity focus. You'll hear all these little things like, eat the frog, plan out your day the night before. What are some other common little adages that they'll do? Anyway, there's all these things. There's a lot of emphasis that gets put into, if you pay attention to getting things done. Okay, David Allen. Great system. Fantastic. Very, very interesting. Kind of like this essential flow. But it's a lot about getting things done fast and a lot less about what are the things you're getting done. And in truth, what you do, doing the right things, provided you reach a certain minimum threshold, greatly trumps doing those things right. You have to do a certain level of right? Otherwise, it doesn't matter what you do, you just fail at it, right? So it doesn't work to do something that's great and fail at it. But generally speaking, choosing the right things to do, even if you do the right things poorly, it will trump by far doing the wrong things very well. Okay? So that's what we want to pay attention to all throughout this training. This is going to be, we're just doing a quick little introduction video here. I'm going to go through with you how we're going to break down in the process of this stuff, those two fields. Okay? And there's going to be a lot more content on this one because there's more that we can talk about. But the real emphasis should be on this one right here. Okay? And we're going to talk about, everything from what are the kind of personal impact pieces, all right? Meaning how do you manage yourself, etc. So this is where we're going to look at, energy and focus, okay? These two things. We're going to get into what we call built to last, which is actually a very high impact. It's doing this thing, it's almost like a blurring of the lines in here, okay? It's a high impact thing to do. You still have to do it here, but if you're doing it here, it's like doing the right of, it's doing the right thing of the things that are done right, okay? If that makes sense. So we're going to talk about that. We're going to talk about planning. And, there's a lot of different planning systems, right? Should you schedule your day in detail? Should you not schedule your day in detail? The truth with most of these things is that there isn't a right or wrong way for a lot of the common approaches. There are some people who are highly productive who schedule like every moment of their day. That's fine. That works for them. There are other people who schedule almost none of their day. They leave a lot of open and they're highly productive. Okay? You could look at somebody like Warren Buffett who, has a very lackadaisical approach in terms of a lot of his scheduling, according to him. And then you've got, Bill Gates, who's much more regimented, right? I don't know that he is as regimented now that he's left Microsoft, but, he's had that. You can look at kind of Hillary Clinton, interesting because I wouldn't even think about this, but I guess Hillary Clinton and Donald Trump running for president. From what Donald Trump says, in I think it's The Art of the Deal, he says he prefers to leave his day more unscheduled, right? And we're going to talk about where that works and where it doesn't. And then Hillary Clinton is notorious, she's a driver, She's very much this kind of scheduled, organized, fantastic manager, okay? So we're going to talk about not just what these things are, but where do they apply best? Because the process that you use to get one result is different than the process you use to get another result, okay? And it's important that you realize that if you want to maximize your result and the results of your team. And this comes into management, which we talk about in the section on leveraged teams, so you can go and check that out. If you try and apply, as an example, to an art creative type, if you try to apply the methodologies there that you do with, the extreme example, you can probably pull from the book Outliers. Outliers talks about the difference in rice farming and Western farming, okay? And so serfs in Western farming were basically slaves who were beaten, And that worked for that particular type of farming because the quality of the work didn't matter that much. It was the amount of work rather than the quality of work, and then it was a lot dependent on the weather, etc. In rice farming, that methodology didn't work because of the fact that the quality of the work, whether you had that, the clay, the ground for the rice was exactly flat or slightly flat, made a big difference in the amount of growth you got. Whether you flooded it too much or too little or just the right amount, the rice paddy, made a big difference, right? And you can't beat someone into caring, okay? Not from a quality of work standpoint, right? You can beat them into caring that they get the work done, which is why that managerial style worked for that environment. But today, we're a very knowledge-driven economy. There's most of our success comes from two areas, interpersonal and problem solving. Very little that has to do with actual work, getting things done, shoveling, this kind of thing. And so how we manage ourselves and how we manage others shouldn't be reflective of, let's beat them into, doing more work, okay? But even within this type of productivity, you're going to notice that creative tasks are very different than kind of productive tasks. And so, we get into different methodologies, okay? So with that in mind, we're going to jump into these videos. We're going to talk about the Ultimate Productivity Guide. We're going to cover what I hope for you is, very valuable. You can take these lessons. There's not a lot of them. It's not a lot of things, which is great because it should be pretty easy to incorporate into your life. And a series of small things should give you a pretty major impact, okay? We're not going to go too specific on it in terms of like how you implement those because those specifics vary a lot, right? As an example, Brendan Bouchard has one planning method. Tony Robbins has another planning method. You can use either of those planning methods. They both work for some people, okay? The idea isn't that. The idea is that planning, and there's certain aspects of planning, are critical, okay? And we'll go through what those are. So if you want some support and assistance, as always, you should go and join the action classes. You should reach out to us. But I'm going to look forward to seeing you guys on the next video as we explore this subject of ultimate productivity. See you then.